Previously on Redbeard's Garage.
So we bolted everything up, and look how gnarly this thing looks. It looks freaking crazy. And you got to think the tires are going to set out past this swing arm. So the tires is going to set like right here and just be one big behemoth. It looks freaking awesome. So now we have to make shock mounts. That's why we welded this pipe crossbar here. So Brandon, go ahead and hold that 90 up.
So somewhere like this.
Yeah, so we'll tack these on and then fill the gap, of course, with a piece of pipe. And our shocks will bolt up like right where his finger's sitting, just right there.
Right.
That'll put them at a good geometry, I think, so they won't get any bind and bend the shocks or anything. And we do got 4 bearings on this, which is going to be fine. There's a possibility we could bend the axle, but you know, we're just going to have to do it. And I'm probably going to, when we widen the front end, we're going to redo this whole front box section here and widen it about 4 inches on each side to kick these tires out. And then we can probably put the steering wheel centered on it and put a car bucket seat in this thing. But it looks insane though.
Between my fingers. Look.
None. Like I can't budge that thing. Whew.
Is that bad or good?
Well, you know, they're staying. They're made on. That's not good. I mean, I'm a 250 or 60 pound guy, and it ain't budging a bit.
That's why I thought they should be on up here, because it gives more leverage pushing on them.
Yeah. So when we put the 52 inch axle on, we didn't think, but it ain't, or it was a 54. It wasn't wide enough. We only had like 5 inches on each side since we made that 42 inches. So what we're having to do is cut 2 axles down to weld them together in the center. I know people are probably going to gripe with their theories of why this won't work, but it's going to work fine. We already cut a little piece of pipe, and this will slide over the axle first. We'll weld the axle, then slide this over top and weld it on each side. There's no way it's going to break. And these aren't hardened axles or anything. They're just nickel plated solid steel rod is all it is. So we're gonna go ahead and we got one cut. We're gonna cut this one, then we can put the bearings on and everything to make sure everything's aligned, and then weld it together. Fire in the hole. Takes I'm sure people noticed we got a Harbor Freight Drill Master 14-inch industrial cutoff saw. I did some trading on Craigslist for this actually, and the guy was a viewer of the channel. I guess that's fine. But yeah, so that's going to be handy.
You got this nice stand for it too.
Yeah, we quit on the 4-seater and made it into a saw stand. I like it.
Holds it good and level.
Yeah. But that's going to speed up some stuff. That was solid. That took a minute to cut because don't like to cut some solid.
Go Power Sports quality.
We barely cut. We thought we was going to have to get the plasma cutter out because Go Power Sports sells quality.
Curious to see some of the feedback they get over this thing.
Oh yeah, I know people ain't gonna like it and they're gonna cry. Eyeballs. Can you slide yours out any? Yeah, slide it. Yeah. So, we necessarily don't have to have the keyways lined up either. It's just a way to keep them copacetic. That's our new saw stand.
I was trying to figure it out.
It's a band saw that we can porta band. I bought a foot pedal for it, and then my buddy I got the pipe bender from was showing me these where you can buy these stands for your porta bands. I was like, why would I buy one when it's easy to make? So all we had to do was Brandon got me a 1/4-inch thick piece of steel. We drilled two holes to bolt this to the saw and cut a slit with an angle grinder. And then later I can make its own stand so we don't have to put it in a vise. But for right now we welded a piece of angle on the bottom of it and put it in the vise. And I bought a foot pedal. Offline, so
Works great.
that's gonna be
Is this going to cut production time in half?
Nope.
Maybe cut it down a little bit, not in half.
Not even add to it sometimes. Oh my gosh. That's a bird in the fan.
Now I get to get a C-clamp. Okay,
Where's my seat clamps? We had them out and I never recovered them.
So much stuff.
Oh my goodness. Someone said, someone was griping the other day about us not finishing projects. There's probably other channels you can go watch that finish projects.
Really take in the mess right now. It's just projects everywhere though, that's what it is.
We use them over there and I never...
If we leave projects unfinished everywhere, then we don't have to worry about ever having video content, something to work on.
Yeah. So we took a piece of angle, clamped it on the axle just to make sure it's all level. We got a piece of key in there, clamped it in the center. So, I mean, if it's off, who gives a flip? It's an off-road go-kart. It's not like we're doing top speed runs on this thing. And honestly, as long as you're not riding on asphalt, that's the only time I've ever noticed the axle's warped is on asphalt on a straight line. So,
For all the ones that says this ain't gonna work, wait till it breaks and say I told you so.
Yeah, because it ain't gonna happen. Fire in the hole.
some nice vice grips.
They are. It's one of those things that, you know, there's so many tools we need. We just pick the ones we use the most. That's the ones we buy. Like I've had that portaband bought forever. We made that stand for, and I just didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then I seen that stand, and was like, ooh, I can build that. Now we got this piece of pipe. We didn't have something with a super close 1 inch inside diameter, so we're just using this. It's a tiny bit floppy, but this is just for strength. It's not really to line anything up. So now we can put a weld on each side of that, and this is a solid axle. And it's pretty straight. We spun it around, and it looks pretty good. So I love when you kick the welder on. Let me roll it through. That worked out. That's like being on assembly line. Right. So there we go.
That's that piece of wire they run out there first.
Yeah. I can't believe it didn't melt and fall off though. Yeah, she looks pretty golden. I guarantee that thing ain't never going nowhere. It ain't gonna break. It ain't gonna do anything but hook, baby.
It's actually gonna have its own sprocket for this side and its own sprocket for this side. So
even
there's
if
not
it
gonna
did,
be no real stress on that.
Yeah. Even if it
You
did,
actually could have
used
used 2 separate axles. Just put the collar right here. And just
that's
have
what I was
2
going to do,
separate
but
axles.
I didn't want to have to worry about one engine being stronger than the other one and getting any kind of pull. Not that you probably know it on dirt, but you know, this was the better way, I thought. And we needed a brake. I wanted to do. Then we'd have to have a brake right here. That means the axle will be sticking, kind of stubbed out. I didn't want that, so that's why we went this way. But yeah, so now I can fully assemble the axle.
And we like to keep them haters
at bay. We like to give them something to hate on. That ain't never gonna work. That's dumb. You're fat.
My favorite is put a hat on.
All these things are right.
His favorite is what?
Put a hat on.
Yeah, this one guy said like 2 or 3 times, put a hat on. Good gosh, man. Do you think I chose to be half bald? We'll bend this axle, I guarantee it.
The axle will bend.
Yeah. Nothing to do with Go Power
Jump in
Sports
the
axles.
driveway.
Yeah, jump in the driveway, it's going to bend. So we're going to pull this axle off. We're going to go ahead and slide our sprockets, brake rotors, and all that jazz on there. And then we can start mounting our brake calipers.
The
engines, all that jazz. So we have the engines laid on the engine swing arm. And I'm building a chain tensioner right now. I'm going to do a how-to video solely on these chain tensioners. They're super handy, and if you have a welder and a cutoff, an angle grinder, you can pretty much build those. I'm going to try to see if Go Power Sports will start building these and stocking them because they're super handy, especially when you're by yourself a lot. Thanks, Lonnie. When you're trying to tension the engine up, you got to hold tension on the chain and then try to put a wrench on the bolt and a socket on the nut, and it's pretty much impossible. Not really. I did it a million times, but I'm going to start building these. I'm probably going to build me like 6 or 7 of them just to put on the shelf because they're super handy to have, and from now on my builds will have chain tensioners. But all I need to do is tighten up the engine. You want to zoom in on this puppy, and I'm going to have to weld this piece of flat stock right here on the back of the engine. You can kind of see how I made that. I use an all thread nut, which is a longer than standard nut. Then I'm going to put gussets on this to reinforce this, so when you're tightening it, you know, you don't need to hammer down on this thing, but I'm going to put a gusset on each side to make it strong, and the motor will never be tensioned up this much, but you know, that'll give me a good amount of play. So I'll make a full video on how to build one of these chain tensioners very soon. So stay tuned for that because those are handy. Now that definitely isn't going any worse. Alright. That is way overbuilt right there. Just like we like it. So now should be able to put our bolt in there and burn our hands. Ooh. For some reason that's really hot. So now, as you see, once we get our bolt, and I actually made this bolt because the part store, the hardware store, the 3-inch long bolts only had threads on 1/2 inch of the bolt. I needed it to be threaded at least half of that, so I got a good amount of tension. So I just took a piece of all thread and welded a nut on the end of it and made my own bolt size. Should have did that with the 11-inch 3/4 bolt I needed that cost me $20 on the track. So now we can loosen this engine up a hair. Okay. And you can see that? It's pretty nice. And we have, the reason why I use this all-thread nut is because it's like 4 nuts. So basically it gives me even more tension without hitting the block. The problem I've seen with some chain tensioners, they just have a regular nut welded to them, and if you needed to tension the engine forward like 1.5 inches or so, you would end up hitting the block with the bolt. So I have like 3 inches of movement. Not that I'll ever need that, but the fun thing about that is, fun fact is, we can actually take and, like, our chain will stretch over time. No matter what chain you use, it's going to stretch. I've used the best chain, 420 chain on the market, which is DID, and there's another brand that I can't even remember, and it still stretched on us with the 670. Not a ton. It's definitely better than the standard chain, but it did stretch. So I think that we're going to get some chain stretch, so you can just loosen the 4 bolts, tension it back a little bit more, and cinch it back down, and you're good to go. You don't need to, it's not a pain doing it anymore. You just take a wrench on this, if that's all you can get in there, tighten her down, and we're golden. It's going to be hot. It is hot. That's hot. So now I'm going to get the chain put on these two 18 horses. I got a bunch of scrap pieces of chain that I've had forever in these bags, so we're going to try to use it up. It's going to be a really small, short run of chain. I may need to put a washer in between the pulley and the sprocket because the chain may hit, but we're going to go ahead and get both sides. We're going to cut both sides to the same length, and we can get the chain tensioned up with those tensioners I made, and then we can get ready to bolt it to the frame. We are going to be building a full frame for these engines. We got the pipe coming in today. It's actually already at the metal shop. So the Earth Dog's just just to see it run once around the yard or so. So I'm gonna be trying out this Go Power Sports chain brake. I didn't even know they had them. So we got one from them, and this one's supposed to push the pin all the way out. I've never used one like this. Mine just kind of knocks it out, and then you got to switch sides on it. So let's see how good it works. Yeah, it's coming. Oh yeah. See, oh, that knocked the pin. Oh yeah, this thing's 100 times better than this. This is the one I've been using. and it's spring loaded. This works really well, but it's not long enough. The pin on this one, you can push the pin all the way out. Mine, you can't do that. So that's freaking awesome. So we got the chain all cut down to size. We got both sides cut. And I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, the 670 setup. This is what's going on the new 670 build since we had the unfortunate accident where the 670 burnt down. So just so you know, that's why these parts are laid out. We had to make a video with them. And then we got to start the rebuild of the 670. So a lot of awesome stuff right there. A lot of freaking money right there, but that's going to be a sweet build once it's done. Now that we have our chain, we need to put some washers in between this pulley and the sprocket, like I said, because this chain is going to rub the pulley. I've had that happen a few times on 40 series, so now I got to find some 5/8 washers to use, and I'm basically going to use enough to put this out, enough to put one more big washer behind this pulley.
You could do so.
If that makes sense, you have to put the big washers that go power sport stands with these to line up the belt. And what I'm going to do is just check the thickness of another one of these washers, so I can add like 2 of these to space this out and add one thick washer up here. Does that make sense? That makes sense to you guys? Cool. So I'm going to have to pull these engines to be able to get to the bolts to pull these pulleys off and put the washers on. I found all my washers that I need to use. So basically I'll be putting one large washer behind the front pulley and then 2 of these small washers that's the same thickness as this large one behind the driven pulley, in between the pulley and the sprocket, so I can clear that chain. So we're going to pull one engine, pull this one off, do it on the floor, and then we can do this. We'll have enough room to do these pulleys with it on the cart. Let's see. When we put this engine on, we put it on, there's 2 sets of bolt holes on this engine plate from Go Power Sports. This is their largest engine plate. Our shock is very close to this pulley here. I mean, it goes right up above it. So I'm hoping it does anyways. Good gosh. Wouldn't that be a fandango, having to cut that chain tensioner off? I'd sue myself. I think I am going to have to cut the chain tensioner off. Oh, why do we mess up? Because these shocks will be on there. Something like that. And that's way too close to this torque converter. It was supposed to be on over. What I can do is remake this part of the chain tensioner, which will be a lot quicker, because this is going to be a son of a gun to cut off, and it's going to ruin this. I'm going to have to remake it. So what I can do is remake this, because that's pretty quick to make, and allow it to kick over and bolt over there. If that's, well, no, that wouldn't be able to work either, because then this would be in front of this bolt. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that. I cannot believe that one bit.
A day in the life.
Yeah. We haven't had a good mess up in a while. We got it. We was due. Alright. Might as well not gripe about it. Might as well just freaking do it, because it needs freaking done.
We'll see you when it's done.
So we had some unfortunate news. We have to cut these engine plates off and slide them all the way forward until they hit the frame right here. Problem was, we built most of this on the ground without testing the engines, and the reason we put the engine plates where they are now is where the engines wouldn't hit the back of the frame. But I don't think that's going to be a problem. We should have tacked everything into place and then set the engines on and test it, but unfortunately we fully welded them right off the bat, and that's our fault. That was a dumb decision. So now I have to cut both these engine plates off, slide them all the way forward until they touch right here. The reason why this is a problem is the torque converter sprocket is right above the sprocket on the axle, which means when you start tightening up the engine, the chain gets looser before it tightens up. And once we can get the chain fully tightened up, but when we do, it's bottomed out furthest forward as possible. Another problem is these engine plates have two sets of, you can use these two or these two to bolt an engine down. Well, if I try to use these two to set the engine where it's centered on this plate, the bolt holes don't line up. I should have welded this plate flipped, so these two was over here. This one's fine like it is. The shock clears the engine and everything, but on the other side it does not. So we're gonna have to cut these off. We're gonna have to cut the chain tensioner off this one and flip it, weld the chain tensioner back on. Hopefully we can salvage that chain tensioner. If not, I'll just make a new one. It's just a piece of flat stock and some gussets. This is unfortunate. It's one of those stupid things that we should have tacked stuff into place and then test it. But the problem was we mounted the axle hangers, everything on the floor, and one of the last things we did to it was put the axle on. So we should have put the axle on first, then kind of tack the engine's mounts into place. We was just being dumb, not thinking. So now I got to cut a crap ton of welds because this is a weld on top and bottom. It's like there's 6 on top up here. There's 8 on top right there, and there's probably 8 on the bottom of each one. So it's going to be a lot of cutting. I had to drop the axle to get to some of the welds so we can flip it over. So I'm going to start cutting this thing, and it's going to take forever.
Out of that disc, didn't you?
Now I can take a flat disc, clean up all the welds on this and on these because I do want to reuse these. And one of them we're going to have to, both of them we're going to have to cut chain tensioners off and move them over. This is a whole big cluster mess. So we're just tightening up the motor now. I flipped this engine plate, had to cut the chain tensioner off of it. I left this one the same and just slid it all the way forward. Now it should. So if we started the chain out right there and push forward, that should be plenty of chain tension, I would think.
Where's the all the way towards you? Oh yeah, that's plenty. You got about 3.5 inches.
But it's starting out over top of the sprocket, so.
Where do you think it's going to start putting tension on the chain?
Well, I already got the chain. Here, I'll put the chain on right now. Okay. Now we're going to tension the chain up. Oh yeah. And see how much, that's tension fully right there, and we still have 2 inches of movement. So that's
plenty of room.
That's perfect. Now I can pull everything back off and weld it fully on there.
Redbeard's Garage is powered by GoPowersports.com. GoPowersports has a huge amount of awesome go-kart and mini bike parts, and when making your purchase, use the Redbeard discount code in the upper right hand corner of your shopping cart to grab yourself a sweet deal. Hit that subscribe button and make sure the notification bell is on so you'll never miss another episode, and go check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Pinterest to stay up to date with the channel. Guys, always come back to Redbeard's Garage. I'm out.